Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francis Luis Zafra Manning, and I'm here to discuss the Module 32 that entitles the synthesis of the physical, cognitive, and socio-emotional development of adolescents. So, first things first is what is a synthesis? So, it is the combination of parts or elements to form findings. In fact, we already discussed the physical development of adolescents, or also the cognitive and social emotional from module 24, 25, and 26. So basically, in this video is I will discuss the summary of the physical, cognitive, and social emotional development of adolescents. First is the physical development, and physical development is involves the concrete, or can be seen through our senses. There is a physical changes in terms of our appearance, such as our changes of our genitals, and also changes for different parts of our body. So first, let's discuss the physical development of adolescents. So in fact, when it comes to physical development, or the word physical, um, we can see it through our perception, through our senses such as the eyes or the ears as well. So for physical development, is there is the growth of spurt, and it is the early sign of maturation. And what is the growth spurt? So when a child experiences quick physical growth in height and weight, so in a short period of time. So there is a unexpected growth in a particular day or in a particular time um, for a child to experience, like a sudden or a rapid growth through his or her height, and also for his or her weight, because on that because when it comes to adolescent stage, it coincides with puberty. So in fact, these students or this child is able to be active as always. They're active in eating, they're active on physical activities that gains more interest on their respective lives. So like for eating, they're able to consume different foods based on their appetites, their interest on that appetite. So in fact, once we consume so much foods, then there is also the growth of height, with which it is unexpected for a child to encounter, and it is normal for them also. Unexpected, but on that stage of puberty, is expected that there is changes between the growth and height for a student. So next is the primary sex characteristics. So what are these primary sex characteristics? So based on the word sex, so this involves the genitalia. There is the changes in the organs directly related to reproduction. So they are present at birth and comprise the external and internal genitalia. In fact, these organs represent at birth, literally. And what are these internal organs? For female, I mean, is the cervix, uterus, fallopian tube, ovaries, and vagina. And for male is the epididymis, the vas deferens, and testes. So these organs can be found um, inside of our reproductive system, or our genitalia. They mostly responsible for production, such as for male is the testes. They're responsible for production of sperm cells. For female is for the ovaries, like the egg cells also. So it can be found inside. It cannot be found outside. It can be found when there is a operation like that. So next is the external genitals, like the outside. When it comes to external, is outside, like the penis for male and scrotum. And also for female is the vulva and the clitoris. So these organs can be directly when you want to so when you took down to your body, and you can see the penis directly, and also for a vagina also. Next is involves also this in secondary characteristics, the secondary sex characteristics. So it involves the bodily signs of sexual maturity that do not directly involve the reproductive organs. Like there is a physical appearance or changes of physical appearance into our body that not that doesn't involve in our reproductive organs. So what are these? For male, this includes the pubic hair in the near of our genitals, the facial hair, the facial hair like the mustache or the beard, and the axillary hair for this, the armpits, located, and voice deepens. This it doesn't also include there are also more, like for example the muscles also. um, for female also is for breast develops the facial hair and also axillary hair, same as the male. um, Also their genitals. So these changes develops in puberty. Next is the cognitive development. So this involves the cognition or the mind, such as forming mental representations of doing abstract thinking, forming also hypotheses and arguments that is based in their contextual learning capacity. So what are the features of cognitive development? And this involves the abstract thinking, and it is the ability to consider concepts beyond what we observe physically. So this involves recognizing patterns, analyzing ideas, and solving problems. Because this is the this is the this is the fact that as a learner is able to understand mental representations based on their learning capacity or their language acquisition. They able to solve mathematical problems or numerical problems or arguments like logics. They're able to understand what are the what is the what how to solve the how to understand riddles, and also jokes, like jokes that is that not everyone understand, but he or she is able to understand based on his or her understanding as well. So in fact, this type of learner doing abstract thinking is they able to solve different puzzles, like for example solving puzzles in a forming puzzles, or like first they will disassemble this, separate this into a separate this into groups until they able to combine it with different parts in order to solve a particular object, such as like Legos, and also for like puzzles also for forming an image like that. So next is the reason from known principles. So the idea is to break down problems into basic elements and then reassemble them from the ground up. So one of the example of this is like solving FOIL methods in mathematical problems. Specifically, it involves the steps in forming or solving different equations, like digging down the basics of the principles to form or to answer the hardest part of the given subject or question. So there is a step by step principle to solve the particular problem. So next is the considered many options or consider many points of view. So it is not only you consider many points of view that is not on your understanding. Well, it involves in your understanding as well. It involves in how you study, how you understand, how you learn something on a particular subject. So they able to support that event, or I mean the that thought or idea when it comes to their when it when it compensates their knowledge, when it supports when it supports them. So they will also against or they will also contradict the idea if it is not it is not based on their standards. So there, particularly when it comes to this stage, is there is argumentation, like debates. They're able to eliminate the centration. They're able to recognize and realize that they also there's certain things that also affects doesn't involve their learning, especially when it is not when they were unconscious about that thing. Next is thinking about the process of thinking. Specifically, it is a meta involves in metacognitions through thinking about thinking, and that is based on one of the learner-centered principles. And when it comes to metacognition, then the person is able to think more deeper. They're able to think different contextual subjects that they should be able to solve that problem, to solve that question. So this involves in different scanning different articles, not only based on their opinions, but this involves the facts, the logical or the logic reasoning. So in fact, this is a thinking about thinking process. Next is the socio-emotional development, and this is to create and sustain meaningful relationships towards the person's his or her environment. So, particularly, social emotional development involves in interaction to his or her environment, like coordinating, collaborating, uh, knowing oneself's feelings, and also identity. So, let's dig in the the key features of social emotional development. So, first is the identity. It starts to understand who they are, feelings, and expectation of interaction based in their preferences. So once we know our identity, we will able to recognize our strengths and weaknesses. We're able to know what our preferences, what our interests. So when it comes to identity, this involves the social interaction. Once we discover the world, we also discovered different parts of interest that hooks our attentions as well. Next is the responsibility. So it is the capacity for moral decisions and duty. Like for example, um, since adolescence is specifically involved with students, so a student is a citizen, but however, he or she has a responsibility even though he doesn't have a job, but has a duty. So what is or her duty? And those duties is to maintain his studies, which they are the hope for the generation. So that's why the youth or the adolescents' role in this society is to coordinate one another with other students and also for adults. For example, when they having a hard time on understanding that lesson, so there is a teacher or a mentor providing a mentorship to understand in order to enhance the learning capabilities of a student. Next is the new experiences. Once we found new colleagues and friends, or like specifically when we discover the world, we're able to discover different things. We're able to, like for example, there are instances that we able to go in different places, and those different places um, brings different memories that caught your attention that caught your attention that it will be never be fades because there's fun, excitement, and all you experience those experiences uh, contains a positivity in your life as well. And next is the values. This is to gain importance of a particular thing. We able to value things based on what we like, based on what we love, like how we when it comes to school, when it comes to our learning environment, we're able to value our teachers because they are higher order. We're able to respect them. We will value them. We will value for them, and also for when it comes to um, students, we're able also to have a mutual feelings towards them, like crushes or like loved ones. We're able to prioritize them. And next is the moods and feelings. So this involves self-regulation or behavior. So this involves to yourself also. We're able to identify our moods. We're able to identify our feelings. When we will be able to gain feelings, we'll be able to gain these moods in a particular time, in a particular event. Next, like how we uh, what things or what particular event that would trigger our anger, what particular things that would trigger our laughters or happiness, like that. Next is the self-consciousness. So awareness of his or her environment. Once we interact the world, we're able to unlock our consciousness. We would be able to discover, like for example, we as a connected to responsibility, we're able to know the conventional or moral development. So we're able to know our responsibility or duties as a student. So a duty as a student, and it is to do what your studies as well. And for the law, we're able to follow what is right and wrong. So like knowing the laws of the Philippine government. And lastly, the decision making. And decision making, this involves also the interaction within yourself and the environment. We able through self consciousness, we're able to decide what is right or wrong. That is meant for us. That is good for us. That gives essential for us. So we're able to, because once a person became matured enough, then they're able to value these decisions based also in a particular situation. Moving on, let's proceed to the learner-centered psychological principle, or the LCP, also known as the student-centered principles. So we have already discussed this topic, which is in the part 1 or the unit 1. And for the recap, the LCP is the principles are intended to apply to all learners, from children to teachers to administrators to parents and to community members involved in our educational system. So learner-centered principle is widely prioritizing learners or students to in order to reach the standards the of educational capabilities that is based on their grade level, and it is a guidance to help these students through the assistance of a professional, or just an expert um, coordination or collaboration within a mentor and a student. So these mentors also considered as teachers, parents, or adult experts who are able to having a service to help the student in order for them to grow and also to answer their learning needs. So LCP involves 14 principles with 4 underlying clusters, namely the cognitive and metacognitive factors that has 6 principles, the motivational and affective factors that has 3 factors, the developmental and social factors has two principles, and lastly, the individual difference factors has three principles. For now, let's discuss the each of the clusters or the principles for the adolescence development. So let's proceed to the cluster one that involves the cognitive and metacognitive factors. So this involves the or highlights the nature of the learning process, and it is the learning of complex subject matter is most effective when it is an intentional process of constructing meaning from information and experience. So in fact, learning is effective when a student is able to understand the lesson by it hooks his or her attention to gain more interest on a particular subject. And also for the teacher, who is able to where we're undergoing that we're going that experiences that enhances his or her knowledge. So there is a possibility of having a productive engagement between the teachers and the learners, um, collaboration, especially when he or she is able to teach effectively to his students. So next is the goals of the learning process. So the successful learner over time with support and instructional guidance can create meaningful, coherent representations of knowledge. So if a teacher would provide proper guidance to his or her students, such as providing a lesson plan, and those are the guidance for teachers to provided to his or her students, and also for the students. So these goals are considered as the product of motivation, like motivation on having a higher grades, and also um, rewards for having a um, high score. Those those outcomes will be considered as the goal in when a teacher is providing different assessments for his or her students, to check their understanding as well. So next is the construction of knowledge. So the successful learner can link new information with existence knowledge in meaningful ways. So knowledge widens and deepens as students continue to build links between new information. So one of these is the once a student in will be in different grade level, then there will be new information accumulated. Their learning acquisition. They able to deal with contextual instruction and in a particular subject. So there is a maturity when it comes to cognition. There is a upgraded level of a student when we link different informations. So next is the strategic thinking. The successful learner can create and use a repertoire of thinking and reasoning strategies to achieve complex learning goals. So when it comes to repertoire, there is a reservation of different thoughts and ideas that a student is able to maximize his or her potential in their particular subject. So next is the thinking about thinking. So this involves to metacognition, and these are high order strategies for selecting and monitoring mental operations that facilitate creative and critical thinking. So when it comes to thinking about thinking, we're able to think more deeper about a about a particular subject or a given questions that such as logical reasoning, or how we also solve different riddles and also problem solving. So next is the context of learning. So learning is influenced by environmental factors, so including culture, technology, and instructional practices. So individuals change in a contextual world. So this involves the innovation of different technological devices. So this also influences the method of learning, or this also considered as a strategy for learners able to answer their their learning needs through modification and accommodation. So the construction of knowledge, which is the principles of metacognitive and cognitive factors, is one of the applications to in teaching learning centered or the teaching learning process of adolescents. So one of the examples is to administer a diagnostic assessment, assessing their own prior knowledge. So these are also a technique for teaching strategies that there is a diagnostic exam. Not only not it is not focused to the it doesn't focuses to the given topic. It doesn't involve in the present topic of the classroom setup, but it involves the previous lesson, which came from the previous grade level or previous level of a learner. So it is considered as a reviewer that is connected to the current topic before the teacher will discuss. So next is the brainstorming to reveal your prior knowledge. So a teacher will conduct groups of different people or different students and how to and given by a to answer a provided topic, and there is a brainstorming and collaboration, and they're able to plan those ideas and construct these information to link new meanings. So next is the ask students to make a test or prediction. So one of the strategies is before the teacher is able to discuss is there will be questions provided. So when the teacher is able to discuss the topic, the name of the topic, so therefore it is also his or her responsibility to ask some questions before proceeding to the details of the topic. So these are the that hooks the attention of students, and this will be able also to give new to have a this is to have an idea on how the student is able to familiarize that the topic. For the second cluster is the motivational and affective factors. So this includes the motivational and emotional influences on learning. So what and how much is learned is influenced by the learner's motivation. So motivation to learn in turn is influenced by the emotional states or beliefs, interests, and goals and habits of thinking. So there is learning will be or the learning will be effective if a student is motivated to learn. The willingness, the coherence of the process in doing some task in a that makes him or her to be more productive. So next is the intrinsic motivation to learn. So the learner's creativity. It is a higher order thinking and natural curiosity all contribute to motivation to learn. Intrinsic motivation is stimulated by tasks of optimal novelty and difficulty, relevant to personal interest in providing for personal choice and control. So there is a motivation even if the student is having a failure, then there is a high chance of a teacher to teach him or her effectively by providing different instructions, doing some zone of proximal development or scaffolding. This ensures the learner to improve more through a one-on-one teaching method. So next is the effects of motivation and effort. So acquisition of complex knowledge and skills requires extended learner effort and guided practice. Without learners' motivation to learn, the willingness to exert this effort is unlikely without coercion. So so having the effects of motivation is it is one of the main priority that a student is able to adopt and gain his or her potential to to maximize his growth through learning. So without effort, so learning would be ineffective. So I've chosen the motivational and emotional influences on learning in cluster 2, which is the one of the principle of the motivational and effective development. So the possible the possible application of in teaching and learning process of adolescence is one of these is to connect the material to students' interest. So and also provide authentic real world tasks, show relevance to students' current academic lives, and also provide rubrics. So this would enhance the this would woke up the motivational or the motivational instinct of a student when it comes to influence of teaching strategies of a teacher. So for the cluster 3 highlights the developmental or developmental and social factors. So this highlights the developmental influences on learning and social influences on learning. For the developmental influences is as individuals develop, there are different opportunities and constraints for learning. Learning is more effective when a different or a differential development within and across physical, intellectual, emotional, and social domain is taken into action. For the social, is learning is influenced by social interactions, interpersonal relations, and communication with others. So this involves with socio-emotional and a cognitive development relationship among students, and also that is provided with the teacher. So through developmental influences on learning, so the possible application of teaching to learning processes of adolescence is this includes to provide students with a organizational structure of the course. So this also enables the student for those visual learners if there is the providing a visual aid by a teacher so the student is able to understand the discussion well. So another thing is share the organization of each lecture, lab, or discussion. So it is not only for visual aids or different charts, but also demonstrations such as providing different video clips of a particular topic. Like for example, when the discussion is about volcanoes, then a teachers also should provided a projector or a video presentation that is highlights the volcano video clips, and also is make connections among concepts. So when we build connections is um, a teacher is able to discuss to build connections in his or her experience to a particular or in a given topic or discussed topic. So there is a collaboration between experience and giving information. And lastly is ask students to draw a concept map to expose their understanding on how a course material is organized. So before earlier we also discussed the and how the student is able um, to ask his or her opinions, but which is from before the learning progress or before the lesson opening. So for the closure is it is also to identify the student's understanding is to Aside from oral recitation, there's also to draw some concept maps, like uh, with regards to its assignment, like, such as making bullet forms or summary of the detailed discussion. And lastly, the individual differences factors. For the 12th principle is the individual differences in learning. Learners have different strategies, approaches, and capabilities for learning that are function of a prior experience and heredity. For the 13th principle is the learning in diversity. Learning is most effective when differences in learners' linguistic, cultural, and social backgrounds are taken into account. And lastly, the 14th principle is the standards in assessment. Setting appropriately high and challenging standards in assessing the learner as well as learning progress, including diagnostic, process, and outcome assessment, are integral parts of the learning process. The standards and assessment is from the cluster 4 is one of the principles, the 14 principles that also deals the application of teaching the learning processes of an adolescent. So one of these is to provide isolated practice of weak or missing skills. When when an individual has a weakness on a particular subject, then there is the intervention of a teacher, not only when it comes to outside the school, as a parent or adult mentor who is expert on teaching a student through scaffolding or mentorship, then it is one of the assessment. So the person is able to identify what on what academic domain that gives him a sufficient barriers. So next is to give students opportunities to practice skills, including low stake and grades assignments. So one of these is like giving answer sheets, but it is not to be graded, but those are exercises that sorts also one of that is also sort of reviewing, and this is it is also part in um, tutoring session. So next is give students opportunities to apply skills on knowledge in diverse contexts. So it is not only focuses to a single academic domain, but also for referring to multiple intelligences, if identifying the student's behavior when it comes to bodily kinesthetic, for example, then a teacher should support what what a student is doing his or her capabilities or his or her to reach his or her potential. So it would be effective due to the creativity and the talent effort of a student that would build up his or her student career. And lastly is to specify skills or knowledge and ask students to identify context in which they apply. So this type of assessment is able to one of these is the diagnostic exam. So a teacher so based on the wrongs are I mean the not only for diagnostic, but this is the aftermath of an exam. Like for example, there is a frequency of errors, and the student when a teacher is able to identify there are a majority of mistakes in a particular given, then it is the time of the teacher to provide a another discussion. This is to sort of review and able to deal with clarifications when discussing a particular topic. So those are for today's discussion, and I'm hoping that some of you will understand this video presentation, and I'm looking forward that someday that you will apply these different teaching methods or strategies. since we are future teachers. So I'm looking forward that this would help to improve the growth of the brighter future of this new generation. That's all. Thank you.